Welcome to a brand new breakdown. Today, we're doing a deep dive, a totally objective explainer of a highly direct and honestly pretty controversial modern philosophy. We're unpacking a framework that focuses strictly on masculinity, wealth building, and relationship dynamics. The author pitches this as the ultimate survival guide and strategy to maximize the potential of the modern man. We're going to keep things completely impartial here as we examine the cold calculations and intense strategies that tie this whole step-by-step theory together. Let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with the author's absolute core premise, and it's a big one. He argues that if you're a man between 25 and 35 years old, you are in the decade that changes literally everything. The actions you take, the investments you make, and the relationships you choose right now, they aren't just passing phases. According to the source, these decisions absolutely, irrevocably dictate the entire rest of your life.
And that brings us to Pillar 1, the arrival of your prime.
Now, in this framework, the concept of the prime doesn't mean your early youth. Instead, it's a stage of maximum value that you only reach after years of really calculated effort. The text argues, very bluntly actually, that men, unlike women, start out at age 18 with absolutely zero inherent societal value. Youth just doesn't grant you status here. The real heavy lifting, the building phase, kicks off at 25. And the idea is, if you do that rigorous training correctly, you enter your highest stage of power and attractiveness starting around 32, before hitting your absolute peak, your prime, at 35 and beyond.
All right, with that timeline in mind, let's move right into Pillar 2, controlling what you project.
Let's pause for a second. Seriously, think about it. Why do you dress the way you do? Why did you pick out those specific colors today, or that haircut, or even the beard you're rocking? This is a really direct, kind of confrontational question the author throws right at the reader. To him, nothing is left to chance. Every single item of clothing is a strategic move. If you're walking around in baggy sweatpants every day, you're broadcasting a message to the world, and the source strongly suggests it's probably the exact wrong message if you're trying to build power.
The author takes a super uncompromising stance on this. He argues that the world is incredibly superficial. Basically, your internal value doesn't even matter if your exterior is projecting mediocrity. The source directly challenges the reader. Go out dressed like a bum and see how people treat you. Then dress like a successful entrepreneur with a briefcase and you'll be treated exactly like one, even if you literally don't have a single dime in your bank account. It's all about perception.
And this intense drive to maximize your personal value flows perfectly into Pillar 3, the strategy of premature commitment. To really understand why this framework rejects early romance, we have to look at how the source contrasts timelines. The text claims there's a huge difference between men and women here, taking a highly evolutionary perspective. It argues that a female's reproductive strategy is focused on securing commitment early on, which happens to be exactly when a man's value is just barely starting to grow. So, the author warns young men to absolutely not settle during this building phase. The whole premise is that as you grind and improve through your 20s and 30s, your access to exceptional partners is only going to increase. So, what are the actual rules for this pre-prime decade? Well, the text says you need to treat it like a laboratory. It strongly advises completely avoiding early monogamy, claiming it just drains away your vital time and resources. Instead, you're supposed to channel all that energy into understanding female psychology and really sharpening your social skills. The message is super blunt. Do not close doors too fast just to settle into an average relationship. Wait until you hit the absolute peak of your value so you can actually demand an exceptional partner. But look, all this personal development requires serious fuel, which brings us to Pillar 4, multiplying your income sources. Let's take a standard monthly salary of, say, 2,500 euros. For a lot of young guys, that feels like a massive win, right? It's enough to buy a car or maybe finally move out. But the author destroys this illusion real fast. He explains that real life, with all its constant emergencies, accidents, and unexpected costs, is going to devour that money in the blink of an eye. According to the text, settling for a standard salary means you are living right on the absolute edge of a financial cliff. To avoid falling off that cliff, the source gives us a highly calculated step-by-step roadmap. And notice, it doesn't tell you to just quit your job tomorrow. Step 1 is actually keeping your day job, strictly to maintain cash flow. Step 2? Take that extra money, and instead of blowing it on the weekends, invest it. Buy education, get mentors, or build a side business. And finally, step 3 is scaling that effort up until you've built an income stream that doesn't rely on a boss and totally frees you from being tied to one geographic location. And what's the ultimate vehicle for achieving this independence? The author overwhelmingly recommends building a personal brand, or a marca personal. The text actually defines this as the absolute best business of the 21st century. Why? Because it requires very little upfront capital, it skyrockets your status, and it gives you total geographic freedom. The logic here is surprisingly simple. Whether you know about finance, fitness, or coding, there is always someone a few steps behind you who is more than willing to pay for that exact knowledge. But of course, knowledge and money don't mean much if you don't have systems in place. So let's jump into Pillar 5, building elite habits and contacts. The author draws a really vital contrast here between habits and vices. He argues that in your 20s, positive actions, like hitting the gym or reading, have to become as automatic and involuntary as breathing. Why is that? It's all about conserving mental bandwidth. Think about it. If you reach 35 and you still have to burn precious willpower just to get yourself to work out, you're wasting the exact energy you need for high-level business decisions. You've got to eliminate those vices right now, because down the line, they'll act like an immovable anchor. Now get ready for this, because it's one of the boldest claims in the entire text. The author states that 80% of your ultimate success comes entirely from your network. Only 20% actually comes from your technical skills. He calls this process planting seeds. It's about meeting someone today who might not be useful tomorrow or even in 5 years. But a decade from now, that person could literally save your business or make you a millionaire. So how do you unlock that magical 80%? The text lays out some very specific networking strategies. It tells you to infiltrate the right circles, even if that means paying for access to exclusive online communities or showing up at elite industry events. At the same time, you have to ruthlessly filter out the 95% of people who, according to the author, add zero value to your life. Also, the source explicitly claims that in the business realm, male contacts tend to yield a higher utility, so you should prioritize them when building out your sphere of influence. As we wrap up this explainer, we hit this incredibly stark quote. It basically translates to, "We have already lost life because it will end very soon." There is this almost claustrophobic sense of urgency running through the entire framework. The author definitely doesn't see life as some infinite open canvas. Instead, it's a rapidly depleting resource. A carefree, easygoing youth is basically viewed as a trap, one that condemns most men to a miserable adulthood full of regrets. All of this builds up to one final direct challenge from the source. If we accept this premise, that a man's true value is built in the shadows during his 20s, only to shine in his 4th decade, then doing nothing today is the ultimate risk. Based on this pretty intense philosophy, we want to leave you with this thought to reflect on. Are the automatic choices you made when you woke up this morning the building blocks of your future empire? Or are they the shackles that are going to limit your decade of power?